Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast. Going on 10 weeks I've remembered the podcast name. My name is Nick, and with me tonight is this one's even hard for me, perspicacious Bert.
There's about a 0 chance of me being able to repeat that. So I'll just ask you what that means.
Well, I had trouble saying it and I was looking right at it. It means having keen insight. Perspicacious.
Wow. Okay.
There we go. I got it now. Having keen insight.
Wow. Okay. Well, listen, I'll accept it. I mean, you said it. Who am I to tell you wrong?
I don't lie, man. I don't lie when I'm complimenting people. I only use compliments at work.
Listen, I don't ever want to correct you, Nick. Even if you're wrong, I'm just going to go with it.
Oh, wow. Well, as long as they're complimentary, I guess it doesn't matter, right?
Even if they weren't complimentary, I'd just let it go. I'd be like, man, that boy, Nick got me good this week. Woo.
Do you think, if you had to guess, and I don't know the answer to this, do you think there's more compliment words in the world or more insult words in the world?
Way more insults.
Yeah.
I bet it's not even close.
I think so too, probably.
I bet it's not even close.
It's probably not. People are cranky. They definitely have more insults.
Not only that, but as time goes by, insults, like things that we say nowadays that we used to say back in the old days is now an insult. So,
right.
You know.
Right. I know. If I call someone a jive turkey, I think that would one time have been good, but now that sounds like you were lame.
Yeah, that probably is not a good thing by today's standards.
I think it's not. I mean, I don't hear the kids saying it.
Definitely do not hear in the last 30 years the kids saying it, Nick. So.
No, definitely not. We're a little behind you guys, so we had to keep things a little longer sometimes.
Just a little bit away. For anyone that doesn't know, this is my week. We are doing something a little bit different. If we like it, we might implement it on this week's on a podcast you're going to see before this. That's what we'll say. Yeah. Reason for that is I'm kind of letting Nick see this for the first time, so you guys get to see this.
Very exciting.
You've seen it already. If this is good, if you keep on seeing the cartoon, we didn't agree on this one. It's always going to be a cartoon. So, we're trying something different, though. It's something that I've done on my channel, and I think I've had a little bit of success with it. And we want this channel to grow. So if you've not hit the subscribe button, you've not told your friends, what are you doggone waiting on? Hit the buttons.
Heck yeah. Plus, the cartoon thing isn't easy to keep consistent, so I'm really hoping that this wins us over.
Well, this is going to be another two-parter. I told Nick we got to shoot a few two-parters because we got the Christmas special coming up. That's a lot of work. Oh, yeah. I think the last time it was 2 weeks of editing to get that thing ready. So
yeah, that's why I've started already, even though I've not. Oh wait, I can't say anything about what it is.
You can't say nothing, Nick.
Wait, or did we? Or did we?
We've not told him.
Okay. Nothing. I'm not telling you then. Yeah. Don't try to wring it out of me, guys.
Yeah, what are you doing? Stop trying to get Nick. But he's
That's not nice.
Yeah, it's not nice at all.
We're both perspicacious. You're not catching me.
What he said. So we're going to try something a little bit different. This is a two-parter. We're going to try to pace this one. I know if Nick knows a story, I've got a lot of questions. If he doesn't know the story, he's going to have a lot of questions, and we'll try to figure this out. It's a relatively long story. And again, this is a story where it usually comes in parts. It's not necessarily all together. So I'm putting it all together. What none
of you have seen is like a half hour before this, Bert was telling me all kinds of mysterious clues about it that I couldn't guess. So by this time, I'm really amped up to go. But he's got to build it up for you now.
Gotta build it up. Well, here's the funny thing: is when I was creating the narration for this, our narration today, including the music. So the end song, if you guys aren't staying for the last song, you're doing yourself a major injustice.
Oh, you're missing out.
This podcast is just a narration, 40 minutes with the song.
What? Oh, with the song.
Yeah.
That's still long.
It's about,
I'm excited.
It's about 38 minutes of just narration. But the narrations, there's only 8 segments of the narration. So they're longer. Okay. So who wants to see what? Well, you guys know what we're talking about. It's in the title and stuff. But
only I don't. I want to see it.
There's one more thing, and I got to mention this. As the story goes on, there's sections of the story that I love our AI friends. Impossible to get the imagery exactly how we want it. So I went with a scarier version of what it is. But in the story, I do explain what's going on. But who's ready to see what's going on? Don't hold me accountable for what it's supposed to look like, though.
I am. I mean, not holding you accountable. I'm ready, is what I meant. I'm ready.
Well, let's stop talking about it.
Maybe hold you accountable. We'll see.
Well, yeah. Let's stop talking about it. Let's be about it. Let's go.
On a March evening in 1972, a lone figure trudged across the damp sands of Compton Bay on the Isle of Wight. The air was cool and crisp, the kind of evening that chills the skin but soothes the mind. The man welcomed the solitude, walking further out as the low tide revealed glistening stretches of wet sand. He inhaled deeply, savoring the briny air, until a sudden sensation broke his peace, a shock of cold splashing against his ankle. It was only a wave, insignificant at first glance, but its icy touch sent a ripple of unease through him. The man glanced at the horizon, the dark sea stretching endlessly before him. The tide must be turning, he thought. It was time to head back. But just as he turned, another wave hit, higher this time, licking at his calves with more force than it should have. Another wave followed, and another. Each one grew more aggressive, more urgent. He scanned the water, now churning faster than seemed natural. This beach walk was familiar, almost routine, but something was wrong. His gut twisted with the instinctive certainty that whatever was happening wasn't just nature. When the next wave struck his knee, cold panic gripped him. The water surged violently as if driven by an unseen force, pushing relentlessly toward the land. The man spun around, desperate to reach the safety of the shore, but his steps faltered. That's when he heard it. A low, droning hum, deep and resonant, emanating from somewhere far out to sea. It wasn't the wind or the roar of waves. It was something other. The man pushed forward, now wading through the rising water. Each wave was a battering ram, powerful enough to throw him off balance. His breaths came fast, shallow. The beach was still too far, the relentless tide threatening to cut him off entirely. He glanced to his left, spotting a formation of jagged rocks rising defiantly above the waterline. With no other options, he plunged into the frigid sea, his limbs thrashing desperately as he swam toward what might be his only refuge. The waves fought him at every stroke, dragging him back as if the ocean itself sought to claim him. Somehow, through sheer will, he reached the rocks. His frozen hands scrambled for purchase, slipping on their wet, mossy surfaces. After what felt like hours, he hoisted himself up, collapsing onto the stone, gasping for air. For a moment he lay there, trembling, the sound of crashing waves filling his ears. Peering over the edge, he saw the water roiling below, now a frothing chaos of spray and shadow. If he'd tried for the beach, he realized he'd never have made it. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Then he heard it again, that haunting drone. It was louder now, reverberating through his chest, a sound that didn't belong to any earthly thing. His gaze turned back to the water, scanning the endless blackness. And then he saw them. 2 yellow lights pierced the surface of the waves, glowing like twin suns in the dark abyss. They shimmered and shifted as the water distorted their form, but they were there, watching. The man froze, his mind racing to comprehend what he was seeing. Were they eyes? No, they couldn't be. Yet, they felt alive. The light seemed to study him, unblinking and deliberate as if weighing his very soul. Minutes passed like hours as the lights held their position, their unspoken menace filling the air. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they began to sink, fading into the murky depths below. The droning sound waned, echoing off into the distance until all that remained was the crash of waves and the man's ragged breathing. As the lights and the sound vanished, so too did the tide, receding almost unnaturally fast. Shaken but alive, the man clambered down from the rocks and made his way back to his car, soaked and trembling. He left the beach that night with more questions than answers. It wasn't the first strange thing he'd seen. For years, unusual lights seemed to follow him, always distant yet unsettlingly present. He kept those encounters to himself, knowing how mad they would sound to anyone else. But a year later, when his daughter had her own inexplicable experience, he finally told his story. A tale of lights that watched from the deep and the ominous hum that came with them.
Oh boy, was that creepy.
That's the whole point, Nick. We do some creepy stuff over here occasionally. I will say,
I'd say
this story, you think, first off, do you know anything about what you've seen so far?
not a clue. All I know is growing up next to the ocean, this is extra terrifying for me so far.
Yeah. So it's got the creepy appeal to it. But the next segments going forward until the very end is going to do a complete 180. Complete.
Okay, because I'm thinking like this is a Kraken story or something like that.
Listen, hey, it kind of gives that approach. It kind of sounds like that a little bit. It kind of
did. Did you use those special frequencies for those sounds in there? Because that was really getting me anxious there for a bit.
There was a little overlay of 19 hertz. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
So I did. I did what's known as what do they call that? I can't believe I can't think of the name of it. Bilateral sounds. Is that what it's called? I think it's called
binaural.
Binaural sounds. Yes. So I used that, and then I put a 19 hertz that I did on the reverse. So when the sound would be on the left, the 19 would be on the right to kind of add some disorientation. So again, if you're not listening to this with headphones, you're not doing yourself some justice, okay? Or you're smart.
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm listening with headphones, and it was just like I felt that sound inside my chest. Like I was like, this is great and awful at the same time. Yeah,
I played around a lot with the sound. Now, Nick only has, unfortunately, sound effects for the first 2 frames because I was trying to get a feel for it. And since we're doing a 180, I want him to get a feel for the next segment. Now, after that, I've got to add it because it's a pretty tedious process. Like, to give everyone an idea, I started this narration yesterday at, I think, 10 o'clock in the morning. 11 o'clock in the morning, and I finished this morning at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I worked on it pretty much all day.
What I was thinking also when I was listening to this is, and I don't know if you've thought about it this way, but over the course of getting near 100 episodes, or I'm not sure exactly where we're at, each of us has probably written a novel each, at least.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. 100%.
When it comes to this stuff. Because, I mean, you've written 40 minutes right here, so.
Yeah. This was, if you're looking at pages, this narration's 14 pages long. Just by itself. Just this narration, 14 pages. And that's literally just the narrations. I've got probably another 10 pages of my sound effect cues, because I've already wrote all those out. As well as what I call qualifiers, so like background things that should be there. So like, let's use, for example, you have these 5 sounds, but there could be a voice that I want to have in a segment that's just underneath it all. So it's not made to really hear the voice. You'll see in the next segment. There's a part where you're going to be like, that's kind of cool. But to give an idea, this story is taking I don't think we've ever been here before, Nick. It is in
the Isle of Wight, you said, huh?
Yes. So it is Shortlands, Kent, England.
I've heard of it before, but none of this sounds familiar, so I don't think it's related to anything I'm hearing here.
Well, a lot of people's going to say, where did you get some of this information from? And the bulk of this story comes from Befora, and that's a journal.
Oh my God. The British UFO Research Association.
Yes.
Oh, man. My very first UFO book was put out by them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I actually corresponded back when you used to do paper mail with them.
Yep.
Back in the day. So I'm very familiar with Befora.
Well, that will give you an idea. But when you listen to the next segment, you're going to go, why are they doing this? And that's where the fun begins.
I'll tell you what I'm wondering about so far.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you've shown me so far something that I would have interpreted as like a giant sea monster story.
Yes.
But right at the very beginning of it was a clown.
Yes.
And I don't get that later. Will I understand that later, or is that just a clown for the sake of clown?
Hard to tell, Nick. Maybe I like clowns.
Maybe. Okay. I won't question that too much right yet. But if I don't find out about it, I'll be coming back to that.
There was a creepy laugh. You got to put someone with a creepy laugh, Nick.
Oh, that's true. But why was there a creepy laugh?
That's a great question, Nick. You're full of great questions today.
I'm very curious. You've got me to the point where I'm really interested, but I don't know what's going on at all.
Based on what you're saying, you have no clue what this story is then.
No, I really feel like it's a giant octopus, though.
It could be. Could be a kraken.
It could be.
Crack-a-lackin'.
Could be. Crack-a-lackin'.
Yeah, this happened in... So the source of some of this, so I've got a timeline y'all folks can't see, in a timeline that I can't give Nick yet. I've created an entire timeline of when this happened. So even things that happened before this.
Right.
Because I think it all plays. I just had to cut some things out because I'm at a 40-minute narration. I'm just going to cut out all this other stuff.
Just be all narration.
It'd be a 2-hour narration, basically. But this occurred, I believe, in 1972, I believe.
Okay. I'm just searching my internal memory banks for the Isle of Wight because I've heard it before. And I'm wondering if like a bunch of paranormal stuff has happened around there.
Could be.
Because let's be frank, why else would I know something if it wasn't weird?
Well, here's what I can tell you. I can tell you this part because it's not in the story yet. I can tell you the things I've cut out so far.
Okay.
If that's fair. So
I think it's fair.
To give an idea, in 1924, at 8:45 in the morning, there was an object with 2 tails in sight in the same area, and that was in the Befora Journal, Volume 6, Number 5, February 1978 is when that came out, but it was from 1924. 1962, there was a hovering cigar-shaped object reported in roughly the same area. Buckinghamshire, England. 1969, a pure white circle is observed in Ripley, Yorkshire, England.
Oh, they really like the shires around here.
They do. 1970, there was in Road Saint Genesis, Belgium, there was a bell-shaped object that was seen before disappearing.
Okay.
October 20th, still in 1970, they saw a multi-lit aircraft with a ring of red, turquoise, and white lights hovering over marshland near the River Yar on the Isle of Wight in England, which is where we're at.
So this is all really close together.
Yes.
It sounds.
So I told you all that. So that's all UFO stuff, which would make sense.
Right, definitely. That's not octopus hardly at all.
Not octopus at all, Nick. Not even close, unless octopus is alien, and that's possible.
Well, see, this is the thing that they were saying a while back, that octopus don't have any earthly DNA, and they think they're aliens and their intelligence and all that stuff. So octopus could be in aliens.
Correct.
Spaceships, I mean.
Could be.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring something up. I don't know much about it, but I've been hearing about it lately. And maybe it's all a big joke and I just don't get it. But they were saying that aliens are from the seas, not from the skies sometimes.
Which is possible. It's possible.
Did you hear anything about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's big talk in the community.
I got to look into that more. Yeah, I got to look into that a little more. I just caught wind of it.
You just got to go to the Reddit machine. The Reddit machine will tell you all about it, Nick.
Yeah, I need to spend more time at the Reddit machine.
No, don't do that. There's a lot of crazy people over there, Nick.
Well, I hope it's all true, because I believe everything I hear on the internet. That's why I'm so into this.
Me too.
Yeah,
well, and that's the big thing.
I hope it's right.
Now, a lot of people would be like, why would you tell us a UFO story? And then you're saying after that, none of this is going to make sense, because maybe it correlates, maybe it doesn't. My point being, there's a lot of weird things that's happening in this general area, this UFO related.
You know what? I just figured out who you are.
Who? What?
Of the podcast world, you're the M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan. Oh my goodness, M. Night Shyamalan. That wasn't for dramatic effect. I really didn't get that right the first time.
Hey, listen, it happens. I screw up 95% of what I say. So, in fact, I could have screwed his name up there.
No, I think you got it. But
I think that's
you're
right.
just like him, because you write podcasts that have twists.
Yes.
He writes movies that have twists. Not so good anymore, but he used to be real good at that.
And that's the sad part, because his first few was like killer good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I loved them. The last ones,
I even liked one of the ones that people consider bad. Lady in the Water. I love that one.
I didn't like that one. I got it, and I could
Most
deal
people
with it.
didn't.
I could watch it. A lot of people doesn't like The Village either, but I like The Village.
See, I didn't care for that as much. But you know what? I got to rewatch it, because sometimes, like, if I'm not in the mood, I just don't like the movie, and it's not the movie's fault. So
for sure, I'm the same way. I'm the same exact way.
But you're like the early M. Night Shyamalan of podcasting.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest.
Yeah, I would too.
I knew about this story, but I always learned about it from the standpoint of folklore. And I was always like, well, that's a cool little tale, cool little ditty tale. I shouldn't say the word ditty nowadays. It's a good little tale. Okay, we'll leave Diddy out of this. Diddy's got his own problems.
Sure does.
But something came up probably 4 or 5 months ago. And it was going into a different story, which is what we just listened to. And I said, that's a cool story. And then someone said that it attached to this. So I started doing to what the rest of the story is that I knew that I thought was folklore. And it's all interconnected. Because if you listened at the end of that, he said he would not tell a story until, I think it said like a year later, when his daughter had an experience.
Interesting.
Yes.
So it's sort of like running in the family at that point.
Yes.
With the folklore thing, people often say that people explain things in the context of the times they live in.
Yes.
So when we look in the sky and see a bright light, we think UFO.
Yes.
Back in the days, they would have thought witches, like in our recent story. Back before that, they would have thought fairy folk and wee people and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think that's believable. But I also have a side of me that thinks it's all separate and it's all real.
Could be. We don't know.
So you don't know.
We don't know.
Not yet. We don't know.
Not yet. And that's the thing. At the very end of this, I'm going to tie in a teaser for another story that we'll cover eventually. which ties to all of this that's completely separate.
I'm into it. I'm down for that.
But on top of it, even though it's completely separate, there are similarities between this story and that story, and you have to go, what? And if you don't know that story, that's a crazy ride too.
Look at you shamalamming all over the place.
Do you want to hear the next section where we go into what the daughter experienced?
I sure do.
Faye, a curious 7-year-old girl, wandered through the gentle warmth of a May afternoon near Lake Common in the seaside town of Sandown on the Isle of Wight. Spring was in full bloom, and the air buzzed with life as she played hide-and-seek with a boy her age. Laughter and the thrill of their game carried them through the afternoon, but as the clock ticked toward 4 p.m., hunger began to creep in, and they agreed it was time to call it a day. But just as they prepared to leave, something stopped them cold. A sound, low and haunting, rose from the distance. It was a siren, but not like any ambulance or fire engine they'd heard before. It wailed with a strange, otherworldly tone, rising and falling like a voice calling out from the unknown. The children exchanged wide-eyed glances, their youthful curiosity overriding any fear. The sound seemed close, perhaps only a field or two away. Why not investigate? With the carefree confidence only children possess, they began their search. The area backed onto a golf course, so they headed toward the sound, weaving through the neatly trimmed grass and watching as golfers continued their game, oblivious to the eerie noise. Faye thought it odd that none of the adults seemed to notice it. Surely they heard it too, didn't they? The sound grew louder as they pressed on, its pitch vibrating in their chests. Soon, the trimmed grass gave way to a tangled hedge that separated the course from the swampy marshlands beyond. The children hesitated only a moment before slipping through the hedge, emerging into a wilder, more isolated terrain. The marsh was quiet except for the siren, which now seemed almost deafening. The children scanned the landscape, searching for its source, but nothing was there. The siren stopped. The abrupt silence hit them like a slap, its absence more unsettling than the sound itself. Faye and the boy stood motionless, their eyes darting across the marshland. No birds chirped, no wind stirred. The world felt wrong.
Where did it go?
Faye whispered, her voice barely breaking the stillness. The boy pointed ahead. A small wooden footbridge spanned one of the narrow brooks cutting through the marsh. Without speaking, they began moving toward it, the only sound now the squelch of their shoes on the damp ground. The bridge looked old, its wooden planks gray and weathered. As they stepped onto it, the creak of wood beneath their feet broke the oppressive quiet. Then Faye froze. She grabbed the boy's arm, her eyes fixed on something ahead. The boy followed her gaze and saw it too. Fingers. Gloved fingers wrapped tightly around the edge of the bridge, gripping the underside as if someone or something was clinging beneath it. The hand didn't move, but the very sight of it sent a wave of icy dread through the children.
Who's there?
The boy called out, his voice cracking. Silence. The hand remained, motionless against the weathered wood. Slowly, Faye took a step back, pulling the boy with her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she strained to see what was hidden beneath the bridge.
What kind of cliffhanger is this?
Well, listen, there's a lot of info, Nick. A lot of info. We got to go over a lot of stuff.
I guess. So, was this that guy's daughter?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Because I was wondering if it was related, but also it got me thinking, only they heard the sound, only these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had this theory, and I think a lot of people share this theory actually, that only some people are really like in tune with these supernatural things. And I think all kids are.
Yes.
But I think as you get older, it's less likely that an adult's going to be. But it seems like her father was someone who never sort of lost that attunement. And maybe it's in their family.
Well, the interesting thing, and I say this a lot when it comes to paranormal. You can have somebody, let's say they go to a haunted house, right? Or what they deem as they've had a haunting at a house is probably the better way of putting it. Someone else can move in after and never have a single solitary experience. And I believe part of that is perception. And I believe the other part of it is basically energy. I think energy can go into a lot of it too.
Right.
So,
and what you consider normal can play an effect on it too.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes people like live in a house for ages and never notice anything. And then someone comes over and they point something out and that person's like, oh, I never noticed that. And it's been something weird and obvious in their house for all this time. Like maybe there's a sticker of a frog behind the door and somehow they never noticed it.
Yes.
But someone just arrives there and they'll see it. Like,
correct. Now,
all that stuff can take effect.
Oh, yeah. Now, a very interesting thing about this story is a lot of times they'll give a name or they'll use a alias.
Right.
Faye is the only name that we have for the daughter.
Okay.
The boy, I did not put his name. I have his name wrote down because I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. And the reasoning for that was the father, which we heard in the beginning of the story, he did not want any names out. But of course, if you're the journal, you have to be like, I've got to put a name somewhere. So that's where the aliases came in a lot.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Like, we don't need to know the names to enjoy a story anyway.
Right, yeah.
But, so that it's a similar kind of sound is what I'm, in my mind, I'm putting together, that the sound was similar that the father heard that they were hearing now. But I don't think any octopus wear gloves under bridges and marshes, so this seems like something a little bit different.
A little bit different. Listen, it's hard to wrap your brain around, especially we haven't got to anything yet where you're like, why am I seeing this? And it's not. Technically, I'm right on everything as how it's supposed to be portrayed at this point. The next segment's going forward. This is where I took a little creative liberty to create the imaging.
Okay. I don't know if you remember back, but remember when I was telling you that my brother used to have night terrors?
Yes.
And he always claimed he saw this hand come down from the folding down attic stairs.
Yes.
Well, it always had a glove on it too, and it reminded me of that.
Oh, that's
description of the bridge there. Yeah. So, and I don't know if this story's aliens, but we had a couple alien type sightings at that house. That was our second house we lived in.
Interesting.
So,
touché.
Maybe it's related, maybe it's not. Who knows?
Maybe it's not. Listen,
maybe it's not. Maybe I'm Shyamalan and you.
You might be Shyamalan to me, Nick.
Maybe. You don't know.
Now you got me curious. Now I'm looking up something real quick.
Oh, this made you connect some dots.
Yeah, a little bit, because the last story we're going to go over also has gloves involved.
Yeah, we always thought he was talking about fisherman's gloves because there were some of those in the attic, but he always claimed it wasn't those kind of gloves. So there may be some kind of relationship.
That's very odd.
Yeah. I'll also say that he never had night terrors and I never had sleep paralysis till we moved into that house.
And none after?
So I did have sleep paralysis after, but I don't believe he has ever had night terrors again.
Interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me curious because I'm moving some stuff over that's going to be pertinent for later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you're on the YouTube machine, sorry for all of you that listen, there will be some real pictures on the YouTube machine. So if you're curious later, you might want to go back to the YouTube machine to see some of this.
That's the main spot anyway.
Yeah, YouTube, I mean, that's kind of our bang zone right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of where all the goodies are. That's so odd that you said that. Okay, we're going to keep that back in the storage banks for now. Otherwise, I'm going to go off on a tangent. So, one hand holding on to the bridge. Mm-hmm. If you say after this next part, that's the same thing my brother said, I'm going to freak out, man. Just FYI. Anyway. There's a hand holding onto this bridge with a glove on.
Yeah. Is it like it's hiding under the bridge, you think?
We don't know. I know.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know.
I know.
Oh, okay. I can't ask that then? Or is that...
I mean, you can ask, but we're going to cover it in the next segment, yeah.
Oh, okay. I won't ask that.
Well, correction. We're going. We don't necessarily know the answer, but let's just say maybe it doesn't stay underneath the bridge.
I think it don't after you said something like that.
It might not. We don't know. That's half the fun.
It's a glove monster. It's just nothing but gloves.
Listen, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a bad guy, you generally wear gloves.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Maybe that's why he's doing it. We don't know.
Maybe. Oh, so he's a bad guy then.
We don't know.
Oh.
I just said that, Nick.
You're throwing out red herrings all over the place.
Well, it probably depends on who you are to determine if he's a good guy or bad guy. But here's what we know for sure.
Right.
A man sees some glowing red eyes. It looks like sunballs in the water.
Yeah. Was it yellow eyes or red eyes?
They said it looked just like the sun.
Ah, okay. Okay.
And the sun's kind of yellow-orange.
That's true. Okay.
And we know that there was a droning noise. Now, if you remember, the man said it was a low drone.
Right.
But the kid said it was like a siren. But both were drones.
That's right. And I know that as you go on in age, you lose the higher registers.
You do.
Of your hearing. Do you know what it is when you hear a ringing in your ears?
Yes.
You're losing ranges of hearing at that time.
It's one of two. Yeah, I was going to say.
The other thing is, or it's a giant skeleton in Japanese mythology is sneaking up on you.
That's not where I was going with that.
So maybe one of three things? One of three things? So it's typically you're losing a range within your hearing, or two, there is an equilibrium issue, and your ears are resetting themselves. That's the sound that you hear. It's like a hard switch in your ears trying to regulate. That's why sometimes if your ears are clogged, you hear the ringing. Yeah. Is that more common than the losing the range thing, or?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know because I hear ringing fairly often.
Nick's like, I'm going deaf.
Yeah, I'm definitely going deaf. But you know what? I always feel like I've heard enough. I always say that.
Yeah,
I've
trust
heard
me.
enough.
It comes in handy hearing less sometimes. You know?
Yeah, I know. I bet dads develop that sooner than anyone.
Yeah, it becomes a pro status for us. Yeah, you know, but that's the weird thing, because they hear this ringing noise and they're like, what is that? They go to follow it. Now in the story, they're walking along and then boom, instantaneously it just stops.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's because it noticed them.
Well, here's the other thing, Nick, and I want you to make note of this.
Okay.
All the birds stopped. All the typical sound stopped. So it was pitch quiet, except in my narration, there was some beautiful music. But in real life, there was no beautiful music. It was just pure silence.
I wonder if it was that kind of silence where there wasn't even like the regular ambient silence. Like, was it a cone of absolute silence that they entered?
It was a cone of absolute silence, with the exception of when they started walking across the bridge. So as they walked on the bridge, there was the creaking noise.
They heard the squeaks.
But the first thing they noticed is, I should be hearing birds right now. I should be hearing everything that's in the surrounding. I don't hear anything.
You know what they say about the dark forest? If you're in a place that's completely silent, either there's something dangerous in there or you're the dangerous thing.
Listen, that's smart right there. Listen, one
That's
of
right.
two. If you hear complete silence, you're either really safe or you're really dead. One of the two.
That's right. That's right. And I don't think 2 young children are a danger.
Probably not a danger. Yeah.
No, unless this is like a War of the Worlds alien that will be killed by a human disease, in which case kids are very dangerous.
They are very dangerous, yeah. Because we all know they're the doggone virus goblins. Good night.
Yeah, they're the vectors. Like, you know what rats can't do, children can.
Exactly. You know, the funny thing about this story, when I heard it the first time without the beginning part, or my ending part, I guess I've added a beginning part and an ending part that kind of works with the story. But anyway, the interesting thing about it is, when I first heard this, I thought it was a freaking story about a troll.
Well, I can see that with
it's
the
underneath
bridge
the
thing
bridge.
and hiding under it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bet, like we talked about earlier, in the lens of an earlier society, that's probably what a lot of people might have thought.
They may have. It's very possible. Do you want to maybe see what happens next, Nick? Maybe it might take us in a different direction. We've kind of got a pretty good setup of what's going on now.
Yeah, it's all cohesive, but I need more information to put this together.
Well, luckily, this isn't like our AI episode. This was wrote by me, so there should be cohesion through the beginning to end. Should be.
And we're not going to listen to 6 more segments of it repeating Little Men again?
Correct. Well, let's see where this goes, Nick. Let's see what we got going on.
All right, let's do it.
The hand gripped the bridge from below, its shape grotesque and unknown. It wore a blue glove, but there were only 3 fingers, splayed unnaturally against the wood. Faye's breath caught in her throat as she watched the hand move, slow and deliberate. From the shadows beneath the bridge, something began to emerge. The figure stepped out, its movements awkward and stumbling, half hidden in the murky water. Its back was turned to the children, denying them a clear look at its face. But one thing was unmistakable: it was tall, unnaturally tall. Even hunched over, it loomed larger than any adult they had ever seen. Its attire was just as strange. The figure was clad in mismatched colors and carried what appeared to be a book. As it staggered forward, the book slipped from its grip, splashing into the shallow water. The figure flailed, fumbling to retrieve it, its movements jerky and imprecise, almost as though its hands were not its own. The children stood frozen as it stumbled along the brook, raising its knees high with each step in an odd hopping gait. Their gaze followed the figure as it moved toward something even stranger, a metallic structure. The figure reached the door, opened it, and disappeared inside. The children exchanged uneasy glances. This was no ordinary man, and this was no ordinary day. Fear gave way to a hesitant resolve. They decided they needed to tell someone, an adult who could make sense of what they had just seen. Not far from where they had entered the field, they remembered spotting 2 men fixing a fence. They turned and began heading back, their pace quickening as their hearts raced. But they had made it only about 50 feet when a noise stopped them in their tracks. The sound of splashing came from behind them. They turned, and there it was, the figure standing in the marsh, its strange, hunched body now fully visible. It was closer than before, and worse, it was staring directly at them. This time it held something new in its hand. The object was black, resembling a microphone with a thin white cord dangling from it. Neither child dared to move, neither did the figure. The air hung heavy with tension. Then, without warning, the siren began again, louder, shriller, and more painful than before. The sound pierced their ears, forcing the children to clutch their heads in agony. The boy broke first, his terror overwhelming him as he turned to run. But before he could take more than a few steps, the sound stopped just as abruptly as it had started. The figure raised the microphone-like device to its mouth, and then it spoke.
Hello, are you still there?
The words were eerily clear, as though the figure were speaking directly into their ears despite the distance. The tone was calm, almost soothing, cutting through their fear and leaving an inexplicable sense of reassurance. Slowly, their panic began to fade. Faye took a step forward, drawn by the strange calm in its voice. The boy hesitated but followed, unable to resist the pull of curiosity. As they drew closer, they finally saw the figure in full detail, and what they saw defied all logic. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, its head seeming to sit directly on its shoulders with no neck to speak of. A pointed yellow hat crowned its head, adorned with a round black knob at the top and wooden antennae on either side. The hat merged seamlessly into the red collar of a green tunic, a stark contrast to the pallid white of its face. Its face was like nothing they had ever seen. Triangular markings served as eyes, a brown square formed its nose, and its yellow lips were unmoving. Round markings dotted its paper-white cheeks, and a fringe of crimson hair hung just above its eyes. Wooden slats protruded awkwardly from its sleeves and the cuffs of its white trousers, as if its limbs weren't flesh but something constructed. The blue gloves on its hands revealed only 3 fingers, and its bare white feet mirrored this unsettling design, each with 3 toes. Though it had just spoken, the creature's next communication came through writing. It produced a notebook and began scribbling with what appeared to be feverish intent. Then, holding up the notebook, it gestured for the children to read aloud. Faye hesitated, her voice trembling as she obeyed.
Hello,
She read.
I am Uncle Sam.
The words were scattered haphazardly across the page, forcing her to jump from one part of the paper to the next to make sense of the sentence. The strangeness of this didn't escape her, but the figure's calm demeanor kept her from running. Out of the corner of her eye, Faye noticed the 2 men still repairing the fence. She thought they might intervene, but they gave no sign of awareness. They didn't look up, didn't acknowledge the strange figure or even the children standing just feet away. It was as if they couldn't see Sam or the children for that matter. Faye and the boy stood frozen, caught between the ordinary and the inexplicable, as the figure before them. Sam waited in eerie silence.
Ooh, that was a whole encounter and a half.
So you don't know this story, Nick?
I don't know this story.
Man,
This is crazy.
I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders here lately, Nick.
I guess so. By the way, the glove that my brother always said about was blue.
Did it only have 3 fingers?
I don't recall him saying that, but somehow he knew it wasn't a lobster fishing glove, which are also blue. So maybe that was the difference. I don't know. But that's wild.
Well, the interesting thing about this guy, and I don't know if everyone caught it, so I'm just gonna, we'll go over each piece. He was nearly 7 foot tall. His head seemed to fit directly onto his shoulders, so no neck. Now, again, you give that to AI, AI has no clue what to do with that.
Right. I'm surprised it didn't give you pictures of that guy on 90 Day Fiancé with no neck.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like that guy, but that's me.
No one likes that guy.
Yeah, he's kind of annoying to me, but who am I?
He's a jerk, really.
He's a jerk. Now, the interesting thing is, and I got so mad that I started laughing. One thing that AI does a lot is if you have it draw someone, it draws them with 5 fingers.
Right.
If you try to draw someone with 3 fingers, isn't happening.
No.
It's not going to happen. Trust me. I tried over 100 photos trying to get 3 fingers. Impossible. 90% of the time, 5 or 4 total. And then the rest of the time, 5 fingers and 1 thumb. Never 3.
You know, did you try the Photoshop AI thing? It might have had better luck.
I did not try that.
Because sometimes it will do very specific things, but sometimes it won't do anything that you want it to, but you never know.
Well, I gave up after like 100 attempts. I'm like, I ain't doing this no more.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
So it had a pointed yellow hat that crowned its head, adorned with a round black knob at the top, and wooden antennas on the sides.
This sounds a lot like that alien robot I wanted to fight.
It kind of does.
Remember him?
Kind of does a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, the hat merged seamlessly onto a red collar on a green tunic.
Mm-hmm.
Its face was pale
Can I say
white.
a triangle eyes?
So, I'm glad you said this. It had rectangular markings that served as eyes.
Oh, I thought it said triangle. Yeah,
I'm sorry, triangular.
Okay.
It is triangular, sorry. Triangular markings that made for eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Brown squares that formed its nose. And its yellow lips never moved.
I can see why you used clowns for this. Because it does sound very clown-like.
So, it was never called a clown until the village people started talking about this thing and they called it a clown. That's why I went with a clown. They technically call it Sam the Clown is what they call this.
Oh, neat. I could see why, though. If someone, like, let's say we hadn't watched this and you just described it to me.
Sounds like a clown.
I'd be like, that's a clown.
Yes.
Right? I wonder if it appears to people in ways that it feels like they'll understand. Like maybe the first guy was like, he was at the ocean, maybe expected to see an octopus or something like that. And these kids, it was like, well, if they see something strange, maybe it would be better for them to see a clown or something like that, you know?
Could be. We might cover that later, maybe.
Okay.
It's
maybe.
possible.
Anything's possible.
Now, something interesting was, and I don't know if you caught this, wooden slats protruded awkwardly out of its sleeves and the cuffs of its white trousers.
Right. It said it looked like something constructed.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what initially got me thinking robot, other than the voice thing, which kind of.
But it was wood slats.
Right. That's weird.
It had 3 fingers and on each foot 3 toes. Didn't Fraggle Rocks only have 3?
I think you're right. You think it's a Fraggle?
Still got Fraggle Rock. We found him.
It's Uncle Travelin' Matt.
Yeah, we found him. Daggone.
He made it to the Isle of Wight finally.
So,
it's the wood stuff that's really weird.
Yes, that doesn't make sense.
Like, why even? No.
Do you know what
Or it was some kind of metal they didn't know and they thought it was wood.
Could be. You know what I was thinking, because it was talking about how it was walking awkwardly also? What made out of wood walks awkwardly?
Well, a marionette.
Marionette.
Yeah. Well, what is a robot but a marionette, really?
Very true.
A controlled puppet that someone uses.
Very true. But if you think about it, a lot of marionettes are
clown-like. Harlequins really is what they call them when they're marionettes, I think.
Yes.
Interesting. And that would fit into the folklore from around that area, probably.
Probably so, yes. Now, it's interesting. It spoke through this microphone first.
Right. Very calming, it said. Very calming voice.
They were super calm after all this. But then he writes in a journal, in a notebook, and he makes the kids read it.
I wonder why.
That's a very curious thing, isn't it? And it said, and this was kind of hard to hear because I wanted it to sound like the little girl and stuff. Hello, I am all colors Sam.
All color. I don't know why, but that sounds even creepier than just being called Sam.
Sounds even creepier, yes.
Right?
Correct.
All colors Sam.
Now, the other thing, I don't know if you caught this or not. They're looking around and they remember there's two guys working on the fence.
Yeah, completely not acknowledging them.
They're looking at him. I almost said we're looking at him. I was almost like, I don't know if I'm Faye or the little boy, whatever. We can be either role. But
yeah, it's either one.
They're looking at these guys, but these guys, it's like they don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's so weird.
They lost all that sound also.
This reminds me of like when people used to step into the fairy rings.
Yes.
And they were in another world.
Yes. Or we would call it nowadays extra dimensionally.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's what it was then too, because they used to say that you could step in one of those and no one could see you, even if you could see them.
Yes.
Like if they were looking into the ring, they wouldn't see anything.
And what do we say about extra dimensional planes? If you're above, which is where I believe that ghosts and UFOs all fit into, they can look down at us, but we can't look up at them. It's not until there's a rift between that veil, so to speak, that we can see into their world. And obviously they can already see into ours. Yeah.
And European folklore is just full to the brim of that exact kind of story.
Right.
Like
Correct.
People being spirited away. And hopefully not for the kids, but sometimes they think that only moments have passed and they come back and years have passed.
Well, what do we say about extra dimensional planes also?
Time moves differently.
It's not necessarily attached to time.
Right. It's weird because all cultures have that folklore that you get spirited away to a different world. No one can see you. No one can find you. Time for you seems to be normal.
Yes.
But then when you come back, like a lot of times past, like there's Japanese folklore where a guy saves a turtle. The turtle takes him to the sea kingdom. And when he comes back, generations have passed and people only barely remember his family anymore.
Right.
But to him, it was just days, you know?
Correct. It's kind of interesting.
Crazy.
It's kind of interesting when you look at the big picture. So we're trying to look big picture here. When you look at the big picture and you go, what is it about this that could it be an extra dimensional plane? That now this story is like, okay, is it a UFO? If it is a UFO, how are we dealing with the extra dimensional plane? That doesn't make sense.
Right. And we've not really seen ships other than in those stories that you didn't use in here. These are things that seem to be here already, although All Colors Sam had some kind of metal structure.
He did.
That we don't know what it is.
He did.
Could just be a shack in the woods, though. He might just be living there.
Could be. We're going to find out, though.
Oh, okay. It must be taken off in this next clip.
This next clip, no, I left you on a cliffhanger on the next one. Sorry.
Oh, no. You're really getting into this after that last story you did.
Yes.
You're loving those cliffhangers and Shyamalan.
Well, I feel like the last one we did, which was the Seabrink story.
Yep.
That's what's technically coming out this week on our main channel. So when we're recording this, you guys are going to already have both of those episodes. But I thought that was such a fun story, and I kind of wanted to relive funness with this one. Plus, I needed a couple two-parters to get us ahead. So if we need to take a couple days off to the Christmas thing, sorry. That was my thought process.
Oh, that's good. But so you wouldn't believe this, but after the episode that we're talking about now is not coming out for a little bit.
For us.
And I've never heard it before. Right. For us, it's not come out yet when we're recording this.
Yes.
And I'd never heard of it before. And I never typed anything in to search for it. And maybe 3 days after we record it, on my YouTube front page where it just shows me things that I might like, that story was there. Someone else had done it.
No way.
Recently,
did they just
too.
do it, or was it an old video?
Just did it like within a week or two.
That's
I think.
crazy, dude.
But how would YouTube ever know that I just heard this?
Not only that, but how crazy is it that we do a story and then someone else did it? Like, technically, we did it first, technically, but ours just takes a little longer to come out, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that was the wildest thing, because I couldn't think of, because I didn't type anything. The only time I typed Subbrink into there was when I was naming our files at the end of the podcast. It's the only time.
I doubt that would have done it, but maybe.
I don't think so either. If it was that, then there's some deep spying going on our computers.
Doggone deep
I
spies.
assume it's just coincidence.
Could be.
I assume it's just coincidence.
Well,
but I thought that was really weird.
It's a channel you listen to all the time then?
Never heard of it before.
What? The channel either?
Nope. Never heard of it before.
I thought it was a channel maybe you listen to, but they just happened to do the same story.
Yep. Just happened to be, and it happened to choose it for my front page. It was only 3 rows down too, so it wasn't far.
That's some wild stuff. Did they do it better than we did it, Nick, or did they do it worse?
No way. Not even close. Oh, we're blowing them right out of the water. I'm sorry, whoever you are, but
did they cover the extra stuff like we did, or no?
I only listened to theirs for a little bit, but it did start with the same kind of thing.
Oh, they're so smart then. Dang it, Nick.
I think it's someone you know who has stolen your data.
That's impossible. That's impossible.
It's your family. They did the podcast before you. They saw your files.
If that's my family, we got some talking to do. Dang.
Well, yeah, I thought that you'd find that trippy. So if we get done this and I see a video coming up in the next couple of days that's this, I'm going to be like, format my computer. I'm going to be starting fresh.
Well, the beauty of these stories are, I feel like there's a series of stories that every channel covers, right? Like, I feel like we cover, what's funny is we did a episode, goodness, this maybe 7-8 months ago. And as I'm editing mine, another channel came out with the same thing, and I'm like, gosh dang it. And it is a channel that I watched. So I'm like, dang it, man. Yeah. The worst part about when we do these is sometimes I feel like someone could be like, you stole that from someone else. And I'm like, first off, let's look at the timestamps. That ours came out before then. We're just a little bit behind everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, we've got timestamps for literally everything. So we're not going to, I don't think anyone's ever going to seriously accuse us of that. But they are scooping us on things from time to time.
Yes. Now, there was a story, I thought it was funny. There's a story we did like 4 or 5 months ago. One of my favorite channels just did the story. And I'm like,
oh, really?
We got a little head on you on that.
Do you remember which one?
It was, actually, it was one of your stories. It was the, why can't I think of the name of it? It's a UFO story that you covered.
It wasn't the Shag Harbor incident, was it?
No. The one from, what was it, Kentucky? Is that what it was?
Oh, the Hopkinsville Goblins?
Yes.
Yeah, see? Everyone wants a piece of the goblins.
That's what it is.
They're fun.
They did it from the movie standpoint, though. Like, they went full tilt into that version of it. But it's always fascinating when I see like the channels that I enjoy watching that does stuff that we do, but we did it first. I'm always curious how they do it, because I'm like, did we do it better?
They just straight up copy us word for word.
They did. Just kidding. They did. That's what it was.
I'd be honored if they did.
It would be interesting. Like, I would totally be down. Like, if someone used our stuff and was like, let's cover this piece for piece and see what's there. Like, I'd totally be down for that. That'd be such a cool thing.
Oh, heck yeah. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm not afraid of that kind of thing ever.
Yeah, I'm not either. So we've got probably one more segment before we cut it, Nick. So I say we do this one and then we talk about it, and then no one can accuse me of not saying nothing, because we're technically about 14 minutes in a narration. That means where we got to cut it, we need to be about 16 minutes. So we'll be a little bit over that.
Okay. And you've already told people, including me, that it's going to be a cliffhanger.
I didn't do that on purpose.
And then they'll have to wait a week to hear it. I won't, so haha on you.
This is a pretty good segment, though. It goes into a lot of interesting concepts and ideas. Do you want to hear what that is?
I sure as heck do.
Let's check this out.
The boy remained uneasy, his instincts screaming to keep his distance from the figure they now called Sam. But Faye seemed to feel differently. She regarded Sam with a growing sense of curiosity, even friendliness, as if his odd appearance and peculiar mannerisms were somehow harmless. Her calm demeanor slowly eased the boy's fear, and together they inched closer to the towering figure. As they approached, Sam revealed something unexpected. He could speak without his strange microphone. His voice emerged directly, but the children described it as bizarre, almost wrong. His lips didn't move, remaining stiff and motionless, and his voice sounded muffled, as though obstructed by something unseen. The sound was hollow, like words echoing from the depths of a cavern. Sam began to ask them questions, his tone oddly measured, almost rehearsed. He wanted to know about their lives, their families, their interests. The children hesitated but found themselves answering, their apprehension giving way to an unsettling kind of fascination. Sam encouraged them to ask him questions in return, and their first was about his peculiar clothing. His clothes were vibrant yet tattered, frayed at the seams, and patched with mismatched fabrics. When asked why, Sam explained matter-of-factly that it was his only set of clothes, worn every day because he had no others. The answer was oddly mundane for someone so strange, but it only deepened the mystery of who or what he was. The boy's curiosity finally overcame his fear, and he asked, "Are you a man?" Sam chuckled, a dry, humorless sound, before replying cryptically, "No." The children pressed further. "Are you a ghost?" Faye asked. Sam tilted his head slightly, as if amused, and answered, "Well, not really, but I am, in an odd sort of way." The reply sent a chill through the children. What did he mean by that? They pushed him again, asking directly, "Then what are you?" Sam didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied them with those unblinking triangular eyes before responding with unsettling simplicity. "You know what I am." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Despite introducing himself as Sam, he went on to claim he had no true name, adding to the otherworldly enigma surrounding him. Then, as if to unnerve them further, Sam revealed that he wasn't alone. There were others like him. He took out his notebook again and began to sketch, showing the children a crude but chilling image of one of his companions. The figure resembled Sam, but its features were slightly different, more alien, more distorted. Despite his cryptic answers and unnerving presence, Sam insisted he meant no harm. He told the children that he was afraid of people, that he avoided them because they might hurt him. "If someone were to attack me," he said, his voice quieter now, "I wouldn't fight back. I couldn't." The words should have been reassuring, but they weren't. Instead, they added to the strange melancholy that clung to Sam, a mix of vulnerability and something far darker. And then he asked them, "Come back to my hut," he said. The invitation was delivered so calmly, so casually, that it took the children a moment to process what he'd said. Sam gestured toward the metallic structure in the distance, his unblinking eyes fixed on them. The boy hesitated, glancing nervously at Faye. She seemed intrigued, her curiosity outweighing her caution, but the boy felt his fear rising again. Something about the hut, about Sam himself, whispered a warning into the back of his mind.
I don't think All Color Sam could have said things any more cryptically than he did, because I think the weirdest thing was he's like, you know what I am.
Right.
No, I don't, I assure you.
Correct. Now, I'm going to show you 2 images on the old Discord machine, Nick.
Okay.
Now, one of them it's a map, and I'm going to show this to everyone at home also. So if you look, it's going to show a series of different places. So you can see the area that Sam was actually in.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see there's the golf course that we talked about. And then there's this Sandown Airport. I find it very intriguing that there's an airport this near.
Yeah, I thought that too. Very weird.
Very weird.
But it looks well hidden in between there.
Yes. And if you look,
I can see where I imagine the men must have been.
Oh, yeah, because if you remember in the story, they came from that Lake Common Road area. They went across the golf course, and you can see it's almost like that briary area that they was referring to before you get into the clearing of that marshland.
Yeah, so the guys doing the fence must have been right close to there, because it looks like everywhere else you probably couldn't see past trees and stuff.
Right. Now, I gave you a second one, which is a drawing of what the hut would have looked like. Now, for the record, AI is not going to get the structure right either, so
yeah,
you get what you get. You don't throw a fit, folks.
Yeah. So how close is this, do you think, what it would have looked like? Or is this actually a drawing?
That's a drawing of the actual, what they described.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
It looks like a pretty standard shed fare to me.
Yeah, like
except the door doesn't look very big.
Yeah, the door is very small.
Especially for a 7-foot fella.
Yep, 7-foot fella. Now, what's going to be interesting is when we get to the next segment, which for you guys, you're going to have to come back in week 2 to figure out what's going on. But
yeah,
let's just say it's very interesting when they get inside of this hut. Not saying that they're going to go.
Oh my God, it sounds like they're going to go there.
Well, you have to find out next week.
Dang it. Yeah, I guess so.
Do they go into the
I'd
shed?
have to come back next week.
Yeah.
If I weren't here already, I mean.
Correct. But if you're looking at this at home, you can see how small that door is. There's going to be a part in the narrations coming up next that's going to talk about that door a little bit. And it's going to talk about what could potentially happen if you go inside that door. Wink, wink. Nod, nod.
Doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good. This is a little oven. Is this guy like a witch that tries to cook kids and stuff?
I mean, Hansel and Gretel, man. You gotta.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
Breadcrumbs, man. You gotta need bigger breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I guess. But thinking back to the story, the conversation they had with him was interesting.
Yes.
Because it's like, are you a man? And he's like, no.
Yeah, shot that down real quick.
Are you a ghost? Yeah, are you a ghost? And he's like, not really, but in a way I kind of am.
Right.
So that's where my mind branched into 2 possibilities, 2 choose your own adventure lines here.
Correct.
One is, what's like a ghost, but not a ghost?
A demon.
And that, to me, a demon or a spirit, because they are like a ghost, but has never been alive.
That's true.
But then the other one, I was thinking more poetically, where he's crashed here, him and his buddy, whose buddy's not around, so maybe his buddy died.
Could be.
Or something.
Very tragic story.
When they crashed. Yeah, and he's been here so long, and he's only got 1 pair of clothes, and it's getting tattered, so he's like living like a ghost because he's all alone.
Oh, that's good.
So that's my poetic reading of that.
That's good. And all of a sudden, you got Sam holding on to the door, and he's like, Jack, Jack. And Jack doesn't get on the door with Sam. And then he dies tragically in this field of marsh.
And everyone's crying. Everyone's crying.
And then doggone Sam lost his heart necklace down the marsh.
Yes. And it fell in one of the small holes on his cabin, and he has to get the kids to go in and get it. And that's all he needs to leave, because that powers his ship.
Exactly. You know what the sad part is?
I guess we figured it out.
With AI, I'm going to have like a little Titanic scene where Sam's holding on to this spaceship door in the middle of the marsh. Have Leonardo DiCaprio reaching up.
That'd be spectacular. Jack, no. I wish I could have let you on this clearly large enough door.
It's just not big enough, Jack. Jack's like, son of a...
It's not...
Twice this has happened to me.
Oh, poor Jack. A poor all-colored Jack.
But they do have a very perplexing thing. Are you a man? Sam chuckled.
Mm-hmm.
He laughed.
Yeah.
And he said no. And it said they said that he did it very cryptically.
Right.
Then they said, "Are you a ghost?" And it said, Sam tilted his head slightly as if amused and answered, "Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way."
Yeah, so that's where my mind split.
And then they said,
but then,
what do you mean by that? Then what are you? And Sam said he didn't reply right away.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You know what I am." That's creepy. That's like the creepiest part of that entire story so far.
Yeah. Of course, I would have been like, no, I wouldn't have asked you if I do. I don't know what you are.
I want to know what you is. Tells me.
Yeah, tell me. I can't guess. I don't want to know. I'm only a 6-year-old kid or something like that. You got to tell me.
Right.
I don't know what you are. I don't know what anything is.
Now, what I do find interesting is he basically claimed that Sam wasn't really his name. So he's like,
right.
Hey, just a heads up, my name's not really Sam, but for all intents and purposes, I'm Sam. And he said he wasn't alone.
Yeah. But I don't see anyone.
He said there were others like me.
Oh, that's the key word, maybe.
They said he took out his notebook again and began to sketch, showing children a crude but chilling image of one of his companions. The figure that looked like Sam, but it's slightly different, more alien-like.
Right.
More distorted.
Right. Yeah.
And despite his cryptic
but
answers...
he said were, you said, right?
Were.
You did say were. Okay, cool. Yep.
Yes. Sam insisted he meant no harm. He told the children that he was afraid of people, that he avoided them because they might hurt him.
Right.
Then he said, if someone were to attack me, I wouldn't fight back. I couldn't.
Now that's weird.
That's weird.
That I don't understand, because he's a giant evil clown thing.
In my story, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, generally speaking, kind of from his description, he sounds like a big evil clown thing. Maybe not evil. Now, if he is some kind of constructed being, maybe he is not allowed to fight back. He's not permitted to harm things.
It could be. Now, the very interesting thing is we kind of got a lot of directions going on here. We've got the UFO narrative and concept. Now we're kind of thinking, well, wait a second. They're clearly in some form of an extra dimensional plane. They've got to be.
Yeah.
No one can see them. They can't hear the outside world. It's like they're in a different place.
Yeah, and there's people like right near them, and they're sure that they're going to intervene, but they never do.
Right. So you sit there and you think to yourself, well, what's in an extra dimensional plane? Could be a demon. And demons do try to befriend everyone before they start knocking on walls and stuff.
Oh, hell yeah. Think of Captain Howdy and Exorcist and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
So could be, maybe. But then the question is it an alien? Because his friend looked like an alien that he drew. Is it a demon? Is it a ghost? Like, what are we dealing with here? We don't know. We just don't know just yet.
Yeah. But he thinks we should know. And that's the weirdest part of all.
But
or he thinks a kid should know.
Yes. But then he sits there and he says to himself, I won't attack someone I couldn't. Is that because he's trying to make the kids feel less scared of him? Or can he just flat out
I did think
not?
about that.
You know, it could be either or.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I feel like you wouldn't say it that way, because that's a weird way for kids to understand it, the way he said it, because it's a weird way of talking. So I'm taking it literally on that one. He's like, even if someone attacked me, I couldn't fight him back because I just am no good at it, or something like that. That's a weird way to say it. I mean, he's a giant thing.
But think about it. Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Grandma, why is your eyes so big? Oh, just so I can see you better. Like, it's just a very weird way of saying it, you know?
Yeah, that is true. Man, I don't know.
Like, this story has.
I don't know. Maybe I'm too trusting of Sam.
It could be what it is. You listen. You don't have your eye spy with my little eye going on over there, Nick. You need to get with it. I even gave you pictures on this one.
I know. You know what the funny thing is you're like the little boy and I'm like the little girl. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm
like, no.
I'm convinced. And it's funny at work too. I always say I'm no good at interviewing people because every time I meet someone, I just like them. And that's no way to.
That's probably not good.
That's not good. Yeah. So I'm. It's a wonder I never got kidnapped as a kid.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You got to go back to the story there. Hey there, little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good. Same thing, but this time evil clown.
That's right. But I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go in the hut. Bert's like, something ain't right.
I will say, the song at the end of episode 2 gives that old vibe. Let's just say we do a mishmash of scary music, maybe kind of circus sounding, maybe some sound effects, maybe some retro sound. Like it's pretty good.
Maybe some blowing at a jug with 3 X's on it.
Possibly.
It's all colored Sam.
That's
Y'all
right.
come back now.
Y'all come back now, yeah. It's like old. What was that? The doll's name? It was a marionette also. What? Duty starts with a D.
Howdy Doody or no?
Howdy Doody.
Yeah. I was thinking the Beverly Hillbillies. Y'all come back now.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Let's
just save that for the ending.
Named Jane.
Poor clown in the shack barely kept his friend fed.
Then he died on a door in the marshy pit. Sam looked around and said,
everyone cried.
Stuff.
Oh, beep.
Well, Nick, do you want to see if they make it into this hut just out of curiosity?
I would bet money they're going into the hut, or at least going to the door of the hut.
We're about to find out. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Check this. Actually, you're not going. See you next week, suckers. That was our diabolical plan.
All along, you've been Shyamalan.
Well, look at it this way, folks. Listen, we tried to make this easy for everyone. We tried to make it. We warned you guys that there could potentially be a cutoff, and this is exactly where we did it. We went right to the very edge Now, technically, Nick doesn't know what's going on either, but he's about to find out. You guys will have to wait
I'm going to find out.
Entire week. I'm sorry.
Heck yeah. I'm not sorry.
But that's proof you need to come back. Also, that song and the second part's a killer at the end. You're going to love it. It's probably my favorite song that I've ever created for an episode so far, and that's saying a lot.
Oh, yeah, because these have been some real fire songs that you've had on songs.
Here. Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed this episode. Also, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, tell your friends. Listen, this is how we grow. Stop taking stuff for free. It ticks me off.
That's right. Don't do that.
Well, until we see you on the next podcast, goodbye.
Y'all come back now, you hear?